Hello and welcome to the GW26 edition of the FPL Scope podcast. I am your host Matthias, and with me today I have my assistant manager or my co-host on the podcast. His name is Kevin, who had some pretty nice assistant manager points from Moise last game week. Did not have as much luck with the first game for Emery in this game week, but he's doing pretty well in FPL in general and doing decently in life despite having a bit of a cold currently. So excuse us if that has any bad effects on this podcast, but we're trying to go ahead as normal basically. And I'm happy to have Kevin here. So Kevin, how are you? How are you feeling, both in terms of your cold or your illness and in terms of FPL?
Yeah, the cold's not great. But in terms of FPL, I can't be too discouraged. Yeah, I think Liverpool have shown that they're pretty vulnerable. So I think it'd be very Emery to either draw or win against Liverpool and somehow screw up against Ipswich. So, either way, like if I luck out like I did with Moyes last week with the last minute draw and all this type of stuff, like I'll be very happy. If he gets me a return that's, like 16 to 17 points, like if with the draw and everything like that, or even wins, I'll be very pleased. So, yeah, I'll take it with a pinch of salt. I'm very happy that some of the transfers that I did do worked out, and planning ahead and etc. Everything's looking pretty decent, so I can't complain. Like, not everything's going to work out every single game week, so I can't have that sort of unrealistic expectations either.
Yeah, that's fair enough. And also, there is not just the fact that you are slightly or have an illness. We also have a bit of a difference in the podcast this week because we still haven't finished the game week. So it wouldn't be fair to make a Manager of the Week segment yet because we don't really know who's going to be Manager of the Week yet. So that is not part of the podcast this time. But the Manager of the Week will be featured in my team selection video later in the week. So don't worry about that. That's going to come up later in the game week. We're also going to do a bit of a change. Normally we go to Kevin's team first, but I want to talk about Kevin's team a bit later because it works out better for the podcast. Also, we can end with Kevin's plans, which are kind of more interesting than Kimo's plans as well. So let's go into Kimo's plans at first. This is obviously the third, or not obviously if you haven't watched this for a long time, but this is the third and founding member of the FPL Scope podcast, Kimo, who is a manager that we are competing with in our own little mini league, who is doing pretty well this season as well. Right in between us in terms of rank. Currently, I'm bottom of the league and you're top of the league, but you also have used a couple more chips. So we'll see what happens there. But Kimo has done his first or used his first chip this game week, and that is the triple captaincy chip on Salah. First game week, or the first fixture of the game week, he managed to get 8 points. So that's 24 points as the triple captain. Decent return, but it could have been so much more against Wolves at home. He had several chances. He actually scored a goal that was disallowed, had a penalty that was called off as well. Which was correctly called off because Jota was diving clearly. So yeah, but Salah, not the best first return, but it's still a return. It's 8 points, and he has another game to go, so it's looking pretty good for Kimo there. He also did sell Gakpo for Watkins, which has worked out brilliantly. He had enough money in the bank to do so, and also had enough transfers available to not take a minus to do it as well. And that worked out so far. Watkins with 9 points, despite the really disappointing showing from Aston Villa against Ipswich, with one more man for most of that game. Also did Gordon to Semenyo, which I think is a bit strange because I think Semenyo is quite clearly, which is tough to say, quite clearly the least impressive out of the three midfield options, in my opinion at least. But I don't know what you think. What do you think about Semenyo versus Dango versus Kluivert? And what do you think about Kimo's game week so far and yeah, how he's looking in FPL in general?
I apparently hadn't written it at the time, but yeah, I thought Semenyo was the worst pick out of the three, so I don't understand why he went with Semenyo either. But I guess this must be underlying stats or something. Kimo makes picks due to decisions like that. So for me, I think it was just a bit of a strange thing, especially when we know Dango is playing at striker, is cheaper. We have Justin Kluivert, who's in the form of his life, just recently got his Player of the Month award as well, which is, cool to see that he's finally living up to his own sort of talent and hype. Because I remember the player at Ajax, I remember the player that sort of didn't really get going at Roma. So it's nice to see him finally do. sort of numbers that his dad used to do, which is really cool. I like when you see um, players, kids, relatives, and all this type of stuff do well as well. It's just fun to see that continue. With even Maldini's kid is now finally taking the step up and playing it well for Atalanta and all this type of thing. So it's just fun to see. But generally speaking, I don't understand why he took out Gordon for Semenyo when he could have easily picked one of the better assets. But kudos to him in regards to getting in Watkins because I figured Gakpo would miss both games, but
Yeah.
in the sort of if he could play against Aston Villa, then I reckon that might have been a game where he would have had a chance to score. And he's good, he's a good player and very consistent. But in my case, at the very least, I'm getting Enrico Lewis, so I can't really be too upset. And I think Watkins was a decent pick, but my question then becomes, will he be looking to get rid of Watkins
Yeah.
again? Because he's one of the people who had Watkins, got rid of him just to get him back again. So yeah.
Yeah. So Kimo had Watkins up until last game week, game 24. And then he sold him for Gakpo after Gakpo got that huge haul against Ipswich the game week before. Then Gakpo gets one assist in the first double game week when Kimo had him for like 7 points for the double. And then now he had to basically revert to transfer and go from Gakpo to Watkins again. So a bit of a wasteful use of transfers there from Kimo, but I think Watkins as well, considering he got 9 or 8 points from the first game. Yeah, he had 9 points initially, and then Rashford got the extra bonus point there. But considering Watkins got 8 points from the first game, has Liverpool left, and then it's looking pretty good. I think Aston Villa as well. It's going to be interesting to see how they look now with the new players coming in. Rashford is actually looking pretty good for Aston Villa. Asensio's come in there as well, and Daniel Mellon as well is also pretty new there. So it's going to be interesting to see what Aston Villa look like, because they have some like tricky-ish fixtures, but they have really good players and we know what they're capable of. But they also have to fend for themselves in the Champions League as well. Even though they did get past like the initial knockout stage, they don't have to play Champions League this past week and this week. So yeah, it will be interesting to see how they fare against Liverpool, and we haven't seen that yet because we're still waiting for that Wednesday fixture, seeing as we are recording this on the Tuesday. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what Watkins does. I think I would just keep Watkins now for for at least the next few game weeks. We'll see what happens with the game week 29 blank game week, what Kimo does in that instance. For now, he only has Isak, Watkins, and Rodgers, I think, because there are no Palace players and no Newcastle players here, apart from Isak, obviously. So yeah, and he has Fulham, which is we have to go through the fixtures later, but yeah, I think he's going to be able to go through game week 29 without using a free hit. So maybe that's when he sells Watkins. But yeah, I don't think there's like a rush to sell him either, because he is looking pretty good and got several chances against Ipswich. He could have had a lot more points as well in that game. But yeah, 8 points for Watkins. We'll see what happens with him. Salah as well could also push on and do really well. So Kimo's in a pretty good position for the rest of the game week, even though he has only 3 players from the last match between Liverpool and Aston Villa. He doesn't have assistant manager. He doesn't have even 2 Liverpool players. He only has 1 in Salah. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens with Kimo this last game of the game week, pretty much. But let's move on to your team. Kevin, you have gotten 51 points so far, but -8 for doing 2 extra transfers for -4. But you're also going to get 6 points in for Lewis, because Gakpo is not going to play in Aston Villa, so he's going to come in for Gakpo. So essentially you have 57 points with Salah captain and Trent left to play. Looking like maybe a red arrow. We'll see what happens to Emery as well. He's also someone who could really help you. You're really dependent on Aston Villa getting a result here, I think, for you to get a green arrow. But if Aston Villa get that win and you get that table bonus and everything like that, especially if it's like 7-2 like it was a couple of seasons back, that would be absolutely amazing. Imagine that score in the assistant manager tip. Like that could completely change the whole game week. So you have a lot riding on that game in particular. But yeah, you had some transfers lined up. I sort of criticized them, and you went a different route. Originally, you were going to sell. You were going to sell Gakpo, and you were going to sell Gordon, right?
Yep.
For Kluivert and Watkins and
Clavert and Watkins, and get
Slot
Emery
rather than
in as
Emery.
this is or slot, yeah,
Slot rather
rather
than
than
Emery as the
Emery.
assistant manager. Yeah, so we'll see. It really depends on that Aston Villa versus Liverpool game. What happens there? If like one or the other tactic works out better. But for now, like we talked earlier today, and what I pointed out was the fact that you sold two players that are blanking in 29 in Gordon and Sarr, and you brought in two players that have a pretty good fixture in game in 29 in Cloyford and Dango. So I think after we both originally thought to free hit in 29, I think both of us are sort of more leaning towards not free hitting in 29, but we'll get more into that later. But how do you think your team is looking? Are you happy with the team? Is there any players that you really want to get rid of? Like, what is the outlook for your team in general for the next few game weeks?
I mean, currently my strikers are pretty lackluster in that regards. Obviously, Isak more of a issue with his fixtures. Gakpo's obviously not playing, and NDI is gonna be out for at least a couple of weeks, 3 to 6 weeks. So for me, I think it's more about making sure that I get in some striker replacements, and I think there's some good players there that I can get. And there's the Marmushes, there's all types of fun players. There's Chris Wood,
Yeah.
Woodinho, as I would call him. So yeah, there are options there, and I think I shouldn't worry too much, in that regards. I think, generally speaking, very happy with Clavert. I'm also very happy with Dango. Like,
Your
yes, I
your
could have kept
midfield is
Moyes
looking
in.
really solid, by the way. Like
Yeah,
your midfield players are like top notch. It might be what I end up doing with the wildcard draft as well.
yeah, and I'm very much also considering Beto as well because he is our
Yeah.
only striker, and I have a feeling he might be on penalties now that
Yeah,
there's no
most likely.
NDI, and I can't tell who else would really be taking penalties over him in the team, So yeah, and I think that with Everton sort of up and down matches, it's very easy to bench him as well. So I can continue going with the full on assault of 3-5-2 in regards to my setup because my midfield is so strong. But
Mm.
Palmer's got to start doing stuff. Like, I thought people were ridiculous for selling him, but now now it's looking sort of hindsight 2020. Like they've done well.
Yeah.
He's what gone assist and maybe some goal in
One
X
assist in
amount
the
of
last
games.
4 game weeks. That's it.
It's not great. That's
Yeah.
not great.
So if you sold
It's
him
a
four
bit.
game weeks ago, then hats off to you. But I think currently, like, it would be really risky to sell him because he has Southampton, Leicester at home in game week 28 and game week 27, I think.
Yeah.
Um,
So I mean, I'm not gonna sell him, but like, it's just crazy that this is how things worked out in the end. That Chelsea have just been so inconsistent as of late, and yeah, I think Maresca's to blame. To be honest, I think as sackings go, I still don't understand why Poch got sacked, but I think there's even more grounds to sack Maresca after the season, way more than there ever was for Poch. So
yeah.
we'll see. I mean, he can still change things around, and if they get a top four spot and everything like that, then kudos to them, because at the end of the day, I guess Poch only got a Conference League spot. So, yeah, I mean, I guess the best thing,
Only.
I mean, yeah, for Chelsea, that's pretty bad when they're
Never
spending
won
what,
the
like a
Conference League.
jillion. Yeah, but they also spend way more than everyone else. So
There's only been one
they
English team that
should,
has won the Conference League. It's pretty tough to
yeah,
win.
it's probably going to be Chelsea winning it
6
this
teams have
year.
tried and only one has managed to do it.
Yeah, but Chelsea are
Chelsea have
likely going
tried.
to win it
They
this.
haven't done it yet. Aston Villa tried. They didn't do it. Tottenham tried. They didn't do it. Leicester tried. Didn't do it. West Ham, though, they did.
Yeah, but Chelsea are likely winning it.
No,
And then who
they
cares?
tried. They haven't won it.
Yet, it's all a matter of time.
They already lost as well. They lost in the qualifiers.
Yeah, maybe. We'll
Second
see.
leg. Not going to do it undefeated. But yeah, I think Palmer, he's someone that, yes, if you sold him like 4 game weeks ago, then that's brilliant for you. Especially if you brought in someone like Haaland, who's been a bit frisky lately. If you did that move, then yeah, that would have been a really gutsy move to have done. And it has paid off so far, at least. But I think Palmer he has a little bit left in the tank as well. And I think Chelsea, I don't know. He is missing Nicholas Jackson because as much crap as Nicholas Jackson gets for like missing chances and stuff, his movement, his link up play, like all that stuff is absolutely fantastic, and they miss that. Like Nkunku is fantastic, but he also sort of thrives more in the same positions that Palmer plays in. So yeah, it's a bit iffy for Chelsea. Kind of interesting to hear you say that they should sack Maresca, and that would have been like sort of sacrilege like a month and a half ago when they were like flying and close to the top of the table. But yeah,
I've been saying they should sack him for the longest time after game week 1. So
yeah, because you are a huge Nkunku fanboy, and he hasn't really gotten the playing time. But now he is playing, so that's going to be interesting to see what he does in FPL as well, considering he's really cheap. But yeah, for now, your midfield is way too strong to have him. It's a shame that Nkunku isn't listed as a striker right now, because he would be a really nice replacement for either Gakpo or Ndiaye for your case, especially for the price that he is now. That would be fantastic. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with you this game week, with the final game of the game week between Liverpool and Aston Villa. And of course, as an Everton fan, as a Liverpool hater, you always want Liverpool to lose, but especially this game week. Just like this past game week when David Moyes got that beautiful final goal for Tarkowski. It was like double the pleasure for you, I'm imagining, because both FPL and in real life it was magnificent for you, so that helped you a lot. But yeah, like I mentioned at the start with your team, actually there's one thing I wanted to know as well when it comes to the goalkeepers. Henderson versus Verbruggen, obviously you got the worst end of the stick there, or like the short end of the stick, I guess is the saying. Was there any like inclination of going with Verbruggen, or is it just like Verbruggen has been so bad for you this season that you didn't want to go with him? And he played Chelsea as well, so I guess it makes sense. But like, did you ever think about
I
him?
did not. I mean, for me, it was more this. Brighton at the Amex have been terrible, right?
Yeah.
I figured Chelsea could at the very least score in that game. For them to be thumped 3-0, I don't think many people would have guessed that.
It's crazy.
In my case with Everton and Crystal Palace, I obviously believed in Everton because I wouldn't have started Mikolenko otherwise, sort of thing. So, like, I thought it might have ended in like a 0-0 draw, but then obviously we ended up winning 2-1. Not because I didn't think we had belief. It was just just a shame with the injuries and stuff like that. So I figured, and to be honest, we did win, but we looked bad winning. Like even Moisey said, like, look, at the end of the day, I think we were all just a little bit tired from midweek, and all the both mentally and physically. It was just
and the suspension as well, Dokore and stuff.
Him in a scoring against his former club in like a minute. Wow. Yeah, so a lot of different things that are going on, and so I'm not too fussed. I mean, I maybe should have played. It's hindsight, like crazy to say, I should have played Verbruggen, because no chance. Why would I have ever done that against Chelsea, who people still would have expected to do something in this game? But that's Chelsea in a nutshell as of these last couple of
and
weeks.
Brighton as well. Brighton going from losing 7-0 against Nottingham Forest to beating Chelsea 3-0, like it's absolutely insane.
Yeah.
So definitely. I totally understand why you wouldn't use Verbruggen, and I think it was the right decision, like based off of what we knew before the game week, to choose Henderson. But again, it just illustrates that sometimes the best decision doesn't end up being the right decision, I guess, in terms of getting points. But yeah, at least you get the 6 points from Lewis off the bench, so it's not all bad when it comes to your bench scoring.
No, and that's always nice consolation. But it's crazy to say that between game week 17 to 25 for Chelsea, they've only had 2 wins.
Who, Chelsea?
But hilariously, between 16 and 9, they had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 wins and 2 draws. So they were undefeated in 8. So it's they've been in a really bad trajectory. And yes, it could be due to injuries. It can be due to this. It could be due to that. But I also think that Maresca has to do better. I mean, some of these, they lost away to Ipswich, the team that I always say target Ipswich.
Should have lost West Ham as well.
They I've what was the Fulham thing? Like they lost it in the last 10 minutes, sort of like how Everton did back in the day before Moisey.
Yeah.
Um, drew against Crystal Palace, drew against Bournemouth. Like yeah, man, Maresca's shit.
Yeah, that's what I told. Like, obviously, your brother Tim is a huge Chelsea fan, and he cursed me in FPL right before New
Yep.
Year's. He said like, "Oh, you're doing so well in FPL," and since then I've been terrible. But I'm glad to see that along with that curse of me, he's also cursed his own team, Chelsea, because yeah, they've just been terrible since then.
Yep.
And yeah, it's absolutely brilliant to see as a Chelsea hater myself, especially now with my feud with your brother a little bit, and also just me having Sanchez all season in goal. Yeah, Chelsea have been terrible for me in general. But yeah, either way, that was the score for you. 51 points so far, -8 for the 3 transfers made. But let's go into the fixture ticker. Let's look at the fixtures going forward. And first and foremost, there's one thing we need to address when it comes to the fixtures going forward, and that is Game Week 29, because that's going to be a blank game week for Crystal Palace, Newcastle, Liverpool, and Aston Villa. So if you have a lot of players from these teams, it could be better to use the free hit in Game Week 29. And if you use the free hit in Game Week 29, or if you don't, then that changes a lot of things with players that you need to target. So I've made actually 2 fixture tickers this week. One where we don't take into account the games in Game Week 29 because you assume that you would use your free hit in Game Week 29 and you just have to target the fixtures before and after. And we also have the other fixture ticker where we have Game Week 29 as is being played normally, but just with the blank teams. So obviously, teams like Crystal Palace, like the 4 teams blanking in 29, get a higher ranking in terms of the best fixtures going forward when you don't have to think about Game Week 29 where they blank. But yeah, for you have had some thoughts about doing free 29. And if you're looking at the Game Week 29 fixtures, there are a lot of like enticing fixtures from teams that we don't necessarily have too many players from. Bournemouth, we're now loading up on. They have Brentford at home. That's a pretty good game. Wolves against Southampton away. That seems like a really nice fixture for Cunha, Aitnouri, those guys. You have Man United against Leicester, which looked a bit more enticing a couple game weeks ago when you had the likes of Amad Diallo and Fernandes, who were more interesting players there. But now that Ahmad is injured and Bruno Fernandes plays more defensively, it's not quite as interesting anymore, but it is still a good fixture. They did beat Leicester 3-0 last time around, and I remember myself captaining Bruno Fernandes with his 17 points. Just one of the highlights of my game week, or my season so far. Then we have Man City at home to Brighton. That's also a really nice fixture. They have some tough fixtures going into that, but from Game 29 onwards, they actually have good fixtures. So whether you are free hitting in 29 or if you're doing normal transfers, I think getting City players in 29 and trying to get Hold on as well, because he's going to be the best captaincy choice in that game week by quite a distance, in my opinion. Either him or Marmoush, depending on how Marmoush keeps looking now for City. So yeah, that's a really good team to have there. Everton at home to West Ham. Like currently, I could definitely see Everton just smashing West Ham with David Moyes' revenge game, all that stuff at home at Goodison Park. Like I think that's a pretty good game for Everton, but yeah, we don't really know who's going to be the starter there up front. Beto has looked really good though, and I kind of want to stop there just to talk with you about Beto, because you've been a pretty big believer in Beto for a while now. He's gotten a lot of shit online and stuff. Like people have said like, oh, he's one of the worst Premier League strikers of all time and all that stuff, which has always been
Because they're
crazy to
full of
me.
fucking shit.
Yeah, which is just kind of crazy to me. And he's proven a lot of people wrong the last few game weeks. So when it comes to Beto, is he one that you could potentially look to bring in yourself with your team? Because he's really cheap. He has really good fixtures still. And if you're not
As I
free hitting in 29, he's also a really good option. So what do you feel about Beto? Is he going to keep performing like this for David Moyes, or is this sort of like a blip and he's just like in a hot streak? Like, what do you think about Beto and his possibilities of being a good player going forward?
I mean, I think one of the biggest things that, or one of the things that I feel very, what's the word I'm looking for?
Vindicated?
Yeah, I guess that would be it. I always believed in Beto. You're not as you, someone who's 6'4", fast. Like you're gonna be a good striker, and like I thought he was great at Udinese. He was always getting like double digits goals every season for them. He was there on loan, then went to them permanently, then got signed by them, and then we bought him and all this type of stuff, and talks about him going to Torino, and luckily we shut that shit down. Dude, he was always capable of this. Every time got to see him play in the cups, all this type of stuff, he looked good. Yes, he looked frustrated. He had this sort of um, because another player that unfortunately never got to flourish under us and now is doing amazing at Fiorentina is Moise Kean, right?
Yeah.
I've always been hyped on him, thought he was a huge signing for us and stuff like that. Yes, it's a bit different between him and Beto in the sense of the attitude. Obviously, the reason he left Juventus in the first place is because of attitude issues and stuff like that, and all this type of things. Well, with Beto, I think Dyche was just being a fucking idiot. I can't. I don't think I dis. I think I dislike Dyche more than I dislike Rafa Benitez. That says a lot. Like I really do not like how badly and fucking mismanaged Everton were under Dyche because look, just look at Calvert Lewin's stats before he got injured under Moyes. Everything looked better. He looked better. He finally looked like himself.
Yeah.
He gets injured. Fuck's sake. Okay. Beto just slots in and he's like, you know what? Let me get 4 or 5 goals in 3 games. Like,
Yeah.
okay. You know, like, NDI looked so much better. All our offensive talents. Like, I can't. Like Theo looked great under Dice. I can't wait under Moisey. Like, if he gets to use him, I guess next season at this rate because of everything that happened with his injuries. But like, I think Beto is great. I said earlier in the podcast that I'm considering bringing in Beto, benching him because he can be easier to bench when I have such an elite midfield and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I think I'd start him. I said it.
Yeah.
I think he'll be on penalties. I think he's a good option. He's also super cheap. Like, I don't think this is just like a purple patch for the ages. This is what he's always been able to do. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm just so glad that he's finally got a manager who believes in him enough to actually play him. Because I think that's the biggest thing that I'll always have grief with. When Calvert Lewin had his like fucking 5 million matches of gold drought stuff, he still wouldn't give Beto the chance.
Yeah.
It took forever until he finally went, you know what? Let me bench Calvert Lewin. And I think it was like finally against Fulham, Beto got a chance. And then, yeah, he scored. And he almost scored the winner as well in a 1-1 draw. So, no, man. I think people were way too quick to pass judgment on Beto, but I think it was very easy to pass judgment on this Everton side whilst Dyche was coach because he was so shit. I can't believe, like, I hate him more than I hate Marco Silva, and I really dislike Marco Silva. So, like, I can't believe just how bad we've been for 2 seasons, and yet he's getting plots like, oh, can't believe he kept this Everton side up, blah 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 blah. Fuck you. Moisey had more injuries and is still winning more games than you. Go fuck yourself. And you know what the worst thing was? He kept blaming the squad and saying, I can't get enough out of these. Like, he kept blaming them and saying, like, this is all I can do. What does Moyes do? He fucking immediately starts winning matches and is the manager who's gotten the most amount of points since he took over Everton again.
Mm-hmm.
So, Daesh, if you're listening, go fuck yourself.
Fair enough. Quite the excited rant there from Kevin. But yeah, to keep on with my point about Game 29 being a good game week for a lot of teams, we also have Nottingham Forest playing as Ipswich away that game week. So the likes of Chris Wood, Elanga has been really good this season. Gibbs White has been fantastic this season. All the defenders, the goalkeeper, Sells. Like, there's so many people to choose from in Game Week 29, and I think that's the most enticing thing about using your free hit in 29, the fact that you get such a good team in Game Week 29 in general. But I guess it depends just how much faith you have in the players from those fixtures. I was actually talking to a coworker of mine who said, like, I don't really trust, who said that he didn't really trust anyone apart from City, basically, against Brighton at home. Like, he didn't really have too much faith in any of the other fixtures there. But if you were to use your free hit in 29, if you end up doing that again, are there, like, which teams do you think are the best, or which players do you think would be nailed on in your team, pretty much?
Kunya Matata, I think Southampton away isn't the worst game, especially considering it's like a 6 point thriller. So
Yeah.
I think Cunha's a good option there. I think any of the Bournemouth gang against Brentford at home. I think let's see here. City, obviously, yes. I think Man United against Leicester, yes. Like at the very least, you have Bruno for puns, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Um,
Depends who's back
Everton
then.
again.
If my
Everton,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, if
And
Mino
so
and Ugarte and stuff are back, then maybe Bruno Fernandes he plays further up. But we have to pay attention and see what happens with Man United these next few game weeks.
yeah. I think I think Fulham at home against Spurs could be have like a Smith Rowe sort of
Yeah.
Raul Jimenez. Like I think they're players to pick out from all like a lot of these things. Obviously, triple up Forest against Ipswich.
Yeah. You
So
like that
yeah,
fixture?
yeah. Of
What would be your
course.
triple up? Because there's a lot of good assets from Nottingham Forest this season. So what would be your ideal triple up against Ipswich for Nottingham Forest?
I think
Double defense or double like attack?
one. I would go defense, midfield, attack, and I'd
Chris
go
Wood.
Chris Wood. Obviously,
Yeah.
I think probably Brother Aina. I think, I, as a Swede, it makes me angry that I'm not gonna say Alanga, but I just think Gibbs White
Hmm.
just above him. I don't think Alanga is the worst choice either in that regards. Because if Switch are home, maybe they'll score a goal. Maybe Dallup, who's been, the naughtiest. So maybe you could go Gibbs White, Alanga, and Chris Wood in that game. But yeah.
Mm. Yeah, that could be the case. Yeah, I think there's a lot of good players to target in that game week. So that's why, yeah, like I said, 329 is pretty tempting, but we don't really know yet what's going to happen in 34 and
And
33 as well. So yeah,
had Trossard still been at Brighton, I would say Trossard because I sold that fucker when he scored a brace against City away, like what was it, a year ago, year and a half ago?
yeah,
So no, but I wouldn't go for any of the Brighton assets. I think they're gonna get their ass kicked.
maybe, but that game could go anywhere as well. Like both Man City and Brighton have been like super
Of
inconsistent this
course.
season. So maybe Brighton all of a sudden pull out like a 3-0 there as well, and then all of a sudden that City game that looked the most enticing isn't that enticing anywhere or anyway. So yeah, it's a bit of a tricky game week to figure out what to do with. So I think for now we just save or try to save our transfers at least and see what we can do for game 29, whether we want a free hit or not. But yeah, if you're not using the free hit in 29, and these are the teams with the best fixtures before and after. You can see Bournemouth are up top. There's a reason why Bournemouth are so popular now. I brought in Kepa Arrizabalaga myself in goal and Dango. Very tempted by Kirkus, very tempted by Kluivert. I think there's a lot of good, even Dean Huysen as well in defense is also like a nice option. So several good options there. Wolverhampton eventually, Bournemouth away this fixture. Maybe not the best time to jump on Wolves assets, but I still have Cunha. I didn't sell him ever, which was a mistake because I could have had so much more points if I'd gone for Wood or Mateta, but I have him at least. So now for the future, he's going to be good. He's looking pretty good. Crystal Palace, which is probably like the best, like if you have like Munoz and Mateta already in your squad, on top of having like Hall and Isak, for example, I think free at 29 makes a lot of sense because you can just keep those players because they are going to be pretty good for these game weeks. I think for, like Newcastle are pretty far down in the fixture ticker, obviously because they don't have a game week 29 fixture, but also because they have Nottingham Forest and Liverpool. But I think apart from the Liverpool game, I think all these games, Nottingham Forest at home, they could easily score a couple of goals in that game. West Ham, they could easily score in that game. Brentford at home, they could easily score in that game. And Leicester away, they could easily score in that game. Like they have decent fixtures, even though they are pretty far down in the fixture ticker here because of the first two fixtures and the blank. So I think if you have Newcastle players and you have Crystal Palace players, then Gaming 29 free hit seems like the best option. But like you, who only has Isak still from those teams, you don't
And
have any.
Hall.
And Hall, yeah, you have Isak and
Yeah.
Hall. But yeah, Hall I think is more like iffy. Like I think he's gonna concede. Nottingham Forest shouldn't be too bad, I guess. But yeah,
No, they're gonna 100% because Chris Wood, man, he's
yeah,
definitely gonna
he
revenge game them
scores every
again.
game.
He scored a hat trick last time, so
Yeah, that's true. So yeah, so you basically have Isak and Hall, who's like not really like a consequential player. He's someone you can just bench or sell
Sure.
potentially as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you have several players, if you still have Gordon, for example, who could still be a decent option, then I would probably free hit in 29. But if you don't, then I would probably keep my free hits. But that's why I'm currently like in my own situation. I sold Sar now, obviously, but I have Munoz still and I have Isak. So I don't know. I'm probably leaning towards not using free hit in 29 anymore either, but it is very tempting looking at the fixtures in game 29 in general. But if you're looking to free hit in 29, then these are the best teams to target. Like it changes it a little bit. You can see Crystal Palace there go up. All the blank teams go up basically. The team that's kind of like near the bottom in both of them is Aston Villa with Chelsea at home, Crystal Palace away, Brentford away, then the blanking game 29, then Brighton away, and then Nottingham Forest at home. So pretty tough fixtures for Aston Villa. So what do you think about someone like Rodgers, for example, who's been fantastic in the Cups and in the Champions League, but in the Premier League he's done pretty much nothing. Like he's someone that you thought about bringing in yourself for game 25 with a double. But if you had him now on your team, what would you look to do with him? Like you don't, but Kimo has Rodgers. Kimo has Rodgers. Like what do you think he should do with Rodgers, considering they have such bad fixtures, Aston Villa?
I mean, I think he could do what I did with the double up, like with either Dango or
Clayford.
Clavert. So yeah, so it all depends on which one he thinks is reasonable. But I think there's a reason why I brought in a bunch of Bournemouth assets anyway. So like, I
Yeah.
don't feel, I feel like that's the best long term pick.
Mm-hmm.
So like, it feels really stupid, but like, yeah, get rid of both Watkins and Rogers. I would say if you have both, I'd say get rid of them.
Immediately, Chelsea at home though. Considering what you
Well,
said about
I mean, yeah,
Maresca.
yeah, you could probably keep them like that, but you probably like, especially in the case of Rogers, you probably want an additional guy against Wolves at home. That's the reason why I brought in Dango and Clearwood ahead of. I mean, of course, I was also targeting Southampton, but both the Southampton and the Wolves game is just too good to pass up on. So
Yeah.
yeah,
And Bournemouth's good fixtures also extend all the way up until game week 33, when they most likely will be getting a double game week as well. So Bournemouth are definitely a team to target, and Kimo already has Kirkus as well, so he has that final spot to go with that midfielder, whether that's Dongo or Cloyford, who are both tremendous picks, I think. So yeah, I think that
yeah,
makes sense for Kimo as well. We're actually going to get to Kimo's plans. We might as well do it now, I guess. This is his team currently, so currently he has Rodgers benched, or like, at least in my opinion, like the ideal team for him, he has Rodgers benched.
sure.
But looking at the options there, I don't think that it's a necessity to sell him potentially this game week. Like I don't think you need to get Cloyford to start him over any of the other attackers. Like if you brought in
Mm,
Dongo
sure.
or Cloyford for Rodgers, like who would you bench in this instance? Would it be Watkins? Would it be one of the Brentford guys? But they're playing Leicester. Would it be Isak, since he's been poor lately playing for us? Like what would you do?
I
Uh,
mean, you'd still back Isak at home,
yeah,
like regardless.
yeah,
So I probably wouldn't do that, but yeah, I mean, I've given him so much shit for benching Watkins in the past, so I probably wouldn't. So yeah, maybe you could have wait, I just hate Semenyo, okay? If
Any reason
Semenyo
why?
was either no, not really. I think he's just been. I think the reason I don't like Semenyo is like when I benched him, he scored or got an assist. When I start him, he's dog shit. So I think that's the biggest problem with Semenyo. He's super inconsistent.
Yeah.
He's such a great player,
Mm-hmm.
can do the spinneroonie and all this type of stuff. But I think the biggest issue with him is the fact that like I know him as someone is like I wish I was more back into betting because I would bet that he hits, excuse me, the woodwork or the crossbar or like something like that because that's what he's known for. He constantly creates chances and is good. He just lacks the consistency.
Mm-hmm.
Semenyo, prior to Clairevert's whole thing, I would have said Semenyo's better than Clairvert.
Yeah.
Now, no chance in hell.
Yeah. Especially the way they're playing now without Evan Nilsson or Enes Unal. Like Kluivert
Yeah.
and Dango just are more centrally, uh, playing more centrally than Semenyo is. We saw the start of the season, I had Semenyo from game week 1, and back then when they didn't have Evan Nilsson ready to play, Semenyo was actually pretty central. But now it's more Kluivert and Dango. And Dango has been really, really good. So yeah,
Yeah.
interesting to see. But yeah, I think Kimo has a pretty good team here. Could, I guess, get Dango or Kluivert to bench Semenyo, but I think that would be sort of sideways as well. I think it's better to just stand pat. That's my idea for Kimo. No reason to do anything specific. I think just saving up transfers and getting ready for potentially Game Week 29 and see what he can do there. Because now he has double Aston Villa. He has Isak. And that's pretty much it for when it comes to double game week player or blank game week players in Game Week 29. So yeah, again, Kimo should be able to navigate Game Week 29 without a free hit, and maybe try to target the players from Nottingham Forest, from Manchester City, like we just mentioned, that are really good in that game week. Could look at Cunha as well as a replacement for Watkins. A lot of good options for Watkins eventually, but Chelsea at home, seeing as they just conceded 3 goals to Brighton, I think Watkins could be really good in this game week as well. So I would not sell him for this game week, but after that, then maybe when it comes to Kimo's team. In general. The other player that I wanted to talk about as well when it comes to the fixtures is actually Ethan Nwaneri for Arsenal. He looked really, really good. Like, he was man of the match and looked fantastic. I don't really know why Arteta hasn't given him a chance earlier this season. And also Mikel Merino, who came on as a striker basically and scored twice after coming on as a sub. Like, what do you think of Arsenal, especially with that fixture against West Ham at home this game week? I know as a West Ham fan how bad West Ham are in general. Are those two players people you would consider? Only Nwaneri potentially because of the price, because I think Merino is like 6 and something million. Like, what do you make of the Arsenal assets in general, and also their fixtures? Like, there are kind of middling fixtures, but they aren't the worst either. So what do you think about Arsenal in general going forward, and also specifically Nwaneri and Merino as assets?
Hilariously, I've been going without Arsenal assets almost since Saka got injured again,
Yeah,
so I don't feel too bad going without them. Yes, they've been getting the odd clean sheet here and there. I think now the issue with Ito Nwaneri as well is the fact that there are so many good midfielders in and around like cheap-ish prices.
yeah,
Like, maybe it's a bit overkill that I went with Kluivert and Dango, but considering that Dango is technically a striker that plays in midfield in FPL, it made it so much easier for me. I wanted to get Nwaneri simply because he's what, like 4.5, 4.6 now,
yeah.
plays, is great, but and I think he is a quality player and all this type of stuff, but I think considering Arsenal's sort of fixtures going forward, some are good, sometimes maybe good, sometimes maybe shit. So, like, I think if you have 1 year and stuff, go for it. Obviously, great, well done you. But would I prioritize him? Yes, I would prioritize him over Marino. Like, don't be fooled that this is gonna be something that happens now that Marino's a striker. He's a CDM and CM at best. Like, I think he's a great goal scorer and stuff like that. As obviously, as we oh my god, what a move from Leo. He just nutmegged a player. But, oh god, he did like a Rabona flick past the play. Oh god. Anyways, Marino is generally speaking a CM who can score and stuff. We saw this with Spain in the Euros, scored a great header there too. So, like, he's capable of goal scoring, but I don't think you should prioritize a guy who got subbed on, right? He didn't start the game,
No, but
so
he scored twice though, and looked good doing it. And they don't have any
of
striker
course,
options.
of course, but I don't think that's going to be the case. I don't think he's now going to get to play false nine for them going forward, just
Who's
because
going to play?
who are
Trossard,
their players again? Trossards, yeah, Trossard
Martinelli in a
and
couple weeks, maybe.
yeah. They really should have signed a striker. I have no idea what they're doing. Oh, we could spend 60 million on Watkins. I'm sure you could have spent 60 million on Jonathan David, who has an expiring contract.
Yeah, or just bought John Duran from Villa instead. He was
Yeah,
available for sale.
exactly. Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean, he probably went for the money. So, like, yeah.
yeah, maybe. Yeah, West Ham should have signed him in the summer anyway, but that's a different story.
No,
But
but look, if they're able to splash the cash for Ollie Watkins, they should have gone for someone like Jonathan David. And they probably wouldn't even have to have spent that much on him.
yeah.
And he would have been a perfect sort of player for them. So
Hmm.
a bit disappointing of what Arsenal are doing, especially hilarious that the Danish guy that plays for Monaco now, I think his name's like Mika Barrett. He was a former
Yeah,
Arsenal
Bareth as well. Yeah.
striker now, and now he's scoring for fun for Monaco. So it's like
Yeah.
they don't seem to. Yes, of course, super unlucky to lose Kai Havertz, super unlucky to lose Jesus and stuff like that. But you know what? Everton lost Termiti, DCL, and NDI. So fuck you, okay? You know,
And
we hate
Broja.
you.
Don't forget about Broja.
Yeah. Oh my God. Send it back to Chelsea. Oh my God.
Yeah, I don't know. I think Marino is potentially a fun differential. Like I think he will start up front. He will get the chance against West Ham this next game, and if he keeps performing like he does, and he's always been a good goal scorer. We know how good he is in the box. He's shown that for Spain. He's shown that in La Liga. He's shown that now in the Premier League. Like I wouldn't be too surprised to see him score goals, especially against West Ham. So I think it's a fun punt for now at least. Especially if you're looking to Walker in game week 30, for example, then I think he's like a fun like short term punt. But he is also quite expensive in terms of like the other cheap midfielders. So yeah, if you're just feeling like really spicy, then go with Marino. But otherwise, you have a lot of good options, like Kevin just said. And Waneri is one of them as well for a cheap price. And seeing as like Saka's going to come back pretty soon, around game week 30, I think. But I wouldn't be too surprised to see Waneri keep playing as well, like on the other side, on the left, because Sterling was absolutely dreadful. Like he was one of the worst, had one of the worst performances I've seen this season, and he's just been terrible in general for a long time now as well, which is crazy considering how young he still is, or not young, but like how he isn't really that old anyway. But yeah, so I think Marino's like a fun punt, but he's really risky. You have to like bank on him doing something against West Ham most likely. But one area is actually a pretty good option, especially someone you can just stash on your bench, who's most likely going to play in game week 29 as well, considering Saka is still a little bit out, like away from getting ready for game week 29, I think. So yeah, I think those are fun options to consider for Kimo, or for anyone really. But for Kimo, I think just standing pat and doing nothing is the best move. But other than that, I also want to talk with you about captaincy decision. Do you think Salah is the no-brainer captain? But it is away at the Etihad against City,
Not
so it
really.
is tough. Like, what do you think about captaincy in general? Like, ideally, we can even go back to the fixture ticker here and look at the fixtures in game week or the players in game week 26 and who they play against. Like, who do you think is the ideal captain to have this week? Is it Salah or is it someone else you would rather go with?
I mean, personally, I'm gonna consider potentially one of the Bournemouth boys. I don't think it's the must captain, simply due to the fact that it's hard, right? Like I think some of these other teams obviously have better fixtures, but this is like the must performance from Salah in that regards. Like Salah has to perform in this, otherwise Liverpool aren't winning this match, sort of thing. But yeah, City aren't the best, but still away at Etihad. His Etihad sort of numbers aren't the best, if I remember correctly.
I don't know. He's done pretty well in big matches and against City in general, Salah, but
Yeah,
I haven't checked it specifically. But yeah, you assume like, what do you think of that game in general? Do you think Liverpool will beat them quite handedly? Do you think City will give them a tough match? Do you think City are favorites to win? Like what do you think in general about that game? Because it's really hard to predict. I think.
I mean, there's
I'm especially looking like seeing how City look now. Nico Gonzalez has made a huge difference. Like former Barca, we know how good he can be.
yeah,
Like he's looked really, really good and stepped into that Rodri role, which they have missed so much this whole season. Do you
yeah,
think that's legit? Do you think City are like back
of
to,
course,
yeah? So you think
of
City are
course,
like
of
back to their
course.
best now?
I think so. I have to say this. I mean, you have potentially the greatest Egyptian football player of all time, and then you have Mo Salah. So I think it's going to be a no, but
Marmoush.
obviously you got Omar Marmoush who's finally getting to play. I don't understand how he didn't get to play against Real Madrid. I think they might have actually shut shop if he got to play. I don't think did he even sub on? I don't think he did. And obviously gets to play Newcastle and gets a hat trick in the first half. So for me, I think that's gonna be the difference maker. Nico Gonzalez, Omar Marmoush, Haaland finally getting the help he needs to sort of get things going again.
Hmm.
Obviously, Marmoush is 1,000% better than Jack Grealish has been for a year or two, and all this type of stuff. So I think it's gonna. I think Liverpool are gonna get really annoyed and actually draw that game. I think
Yeah.
City can put up a fight, especially at that Etihad. Yeah, I think, especially I think a lot of it will come down to if they manage to get a result at the Bernabeu as well. Because if they pull that off,
Hmm.
all sort of mental um, sort of advantage, all this momentum, everything will be towards City if they manage to get a result against Real Madrid. So yeah, I'm very excited to see what will happen, but I don't think it's that clear cut that Liverpool are going to win like as they normally
Yeah.
have been doing as of late. But yeah, I think if Hola wants to also get back into the conversation, he has to start. He has to score there.
Yeah.
Scored a brace against Real Madrid, which got people talking again. So yeah,
Hmm. Yeah, I think it's a really interesting game, and I could really see like an instant classic as well. Like, we could get one of those like high scoring, really fun games back and forth.
yeah,
So yeah, really excited to see that. Like a couple of weeks ago, I would say like yeah, Liverpool would destroy them, kind of like Arsenal did just recently.
yeah.
And that's Arsenal who don't have nearly enough as much firepower as Liverpool do. But City just look a lot different now with all the new signings coming in. Marmoush was fantastic. Nico Gonzalez was fantastic. Kusano had a terrible debut, but he's looking better as well. And he has a lot of talent. So, yeah, it will be really interesting to see what City do in that game. So, really excited to see it. But back to like the captaincy discussion. For me, I could see like going with someone else, but I don't think there's any like standout options this game week.
Yeah.
I think that's why I think I prefer Salah. Like Isak plays against Forest, which is a good defensive team, and Buemo plays against Leicester. He has been sort of like a flat track bully, as people call him. Like against Southampton, he's been fantastic this season, but he did blank against Leicester at home earlier this season, and I don't really trust him that much as a captaincy choice. Palmer against Aston Villa, I guess, could be good if Liverpool just absolutely destroy Aston Villa and they look bad defensively. But Palmer's been in terrible form, so he's not really that good of an option either. So for me, I think Salah is just a tried and true. He's so safe, he's so good, and especially now if he scores a couple goals against Aston Villa, then I think most people are just going to go with Salah, and I think that probably is
Yeah.
the right decision as well. I think it's going to be a high scoring game. I can't really see it being a 0-0, but who knows? I have been surprised in the past, I guess. But yeah, that's it for the captaincy discussion, I guess. But let's move on to your team and your current plans. They are quite a bit more interesting than Kimo's plans. We have talked about Beto, who could be a nice option for you as a striker. You have said that that's your priority and that your manager thing, like you're not too interested in. Like I've listed Emery to Glasner in case Glasner has that table bonus potential against Fulham, which isn't the worst. Fulham just lost against Man United at home pretty recently, so could see Palace do something there, but at the same time, you don't seem too enthused about Palace in general. And away to Fulham is normally a tough game, so yeah, I'm not sure if wasting a transfer on that or using a transfer to do that would make that much sense, especially seeing as Emery could do well against Chelsea, depending on how Aston Villa look now against Liverpool, because yeah, they are really hard to gauge, I think. But yeah, in general, the striker position is the main thing for you. Defenders, I think both of your defenders and your midfielders are looking really, really good currently. And you have two solid goalkeepers as well, so there's not really issue there. But when it comes to the strikers, do you have any place you're leaning towards currently? Is it Beto? Is it Marmoush? Is it Wissa? And who are you most likely to sell? Is it Gakpo or Ndiaye to get one of these strikers?
Might be both, to be honest.
Both? -4 to sell one of them? Like, who would you bench then? That's the case.
Salah.
No. Who would you bench? You wouldn't. You wouldn't.
I
You wouldn't do
don't.
-4 to bench one of the players that you have.
No.
No.
I probably would potentially. I think it might just be Gakpo. It's just a question of whether it'll be Wissa or Marmoush that comes in first. Um,
Hmm.
yeah. But Yeah, I think that's the case. The only thing, yeah, I think my midfield is very strong for the match that, excuse me, for the match that comes ahead. Could I see myself a world where I bench Palmer because I just don't trust Chelsea at the moment? Maybe, but nah, of course I'll play him. I think as teams go, this looks how I would do it. I probably would. Yeah, I think my priority is to sell Gakpo at the moment.
Okay.
Maybe. I mean, if he's fit, then obviously not. But
But I
if
mean,
he
like, even
isn't,
if he is
then
out, if you do Ndiaye to Marmoush, which you have enough money in the bank to do, you can just bench Gakpo and then you have Gakpo ready at least for Southampton home, and he will be rested in the games before that if he is out. And then you have him
yeah,
at against Southampton at home next game week in game week 28 or game week 27. I can't remember exactly. 28, I think it is. Let's go back and see.
yeah,
Liverpool, they play against City away and then Newcastle at home, which is a tough, and then Southampton at home. So
yeah.
yeah, I guess it depends what you want to do. But yeah, so right now, if I were to ask you, who would you bring in as a striker right now for Gakpo, let's say?
Oh, it's a bit tough. I like if you go back to the fixture checker, God, if Bournemouth had like a clear cut striker, I would have picked that. I think Cunha is actually a little bit on my radar. Obviously, I would have said um, Mateta, but you know, um, I think it's going to be a question of whether I go with Marmoush or um, Wissa. Like I like Wissa's game against Leicester. Don't love the game against Everton. Don't really love the game against Aston Villa. Obviously, don't like Bournemouth, Newcastle, or Chelsea. Chelsea at home, because they've been so dog shit. But yeah, I feel like yeah, it all depends on which striker I end up picking. But I like obviously Marmoush is one of those sort of like this hat trick wasn't like a fluke thing. We know how good Marmoush has been
Yeah.
for Frankfurt for quite some time. I mean, he just like Nkunku when Nkunku was out for half the season, still put Team of the Year sort of numbers. It's the same with Marmoush. Like he'll still probably make Team of the Year in Bundesliga despite leaving halfway in. So
Yeah.
I think Marmoush is the person I'm leaning on
Yeah.
quite a lot. I also like the looks of Beto as well, so
Yeah.
it all depends. It's just a bit annoying that there aren't more clear-cut strikers, or rather, the clear-cut strikers that you would want have terrible games. Obviously, Chris Wood would be great. Gakpo obviously would be great, but terrible games. Watkins would be normally great, but again, terrible games and
Yeah.
blanks and all types of bullshit. So I think it's uh, I
So
guess
Evan
what am I
Ferguson
gonna
then.
say?
Arsenal away, hat
Mm,
trick,
No.
manifesting it.
I really like the look of Kidney as well. I mean, I had
Yeah.
him and I got rid of him at the right time as well. So
Yeah.
like, yeah.
He did.
So yeah, I think
But I
that's
think
what I'll
Cunha for
do.
you can wait with Cunha as well. You don't need to bring him in straight away. And seeing as if you are selling Gakpo now, you are going to sell Ndiaye at some point in the future. So you could just wait with that Ndiaye to Gakpo or Ndiaye to Cunha or Ndiaye to Wood transfer eventually. So for me, I think again it is between Marmoush and Wissa most likely. But I'm not sure if I'd like to double up on Brentford either currently, especially with the fixtures that they have
No,
eventually. Um,
no.
so yeah,
I think about just having him was fine.
yeah, I think Marmoush is kind of the most exciting option, and again, you get another player you can root for against Liverpool, which has been sort of your theme lately with Moyes and Emery and those guys. So yeah, I think Marmoush is interesting, not just because he scored a hat trick. It's not like we know how good he is. It's not just because he scored the recency bias thing. Like he is that type of guy. Like he can score goals, and it is kind of telling that he scored a hat trick and Haaland had like one assist. So I don't even think like you necessarily need Haaland. I think Marmoush is a fantastic player in and of itself. He's on set pieces as well, takes free kicks, takes corners. Probably doesn't take penalties just yet, but Haaland has been missing them a bit. So who knows with that in the future either. So yeah, I think Marmoush is the main guy. That's most likely your striker move. Captaincy, we talked about it now this game week. Do you think you're going to end up with Salah, or do you think you would punt on someone else? Maybe even Marmoush?
Nah, I think Salah's like he is the best set and forget captain and all this type of stuff. But if I get any inklings of like Cunyout or like mass wolves, flu. You know what? I should head to Wolverhampton and sneeze on a sandwich and be like, "Oh, take a piece." So that I definitely captain Kluivert. But
Kluivert?
besides that, yeah, I
Over
think
Dungle?
Kluivert penalties, right?
Penalties?
At the end
Yeah,
of the day, yeah.
makes sense. And Wolves
But
as well.
I like
We should remember Wolves is where Kluivert scored the hat trick of penalties last time, and they also conceded 1 and almost 2 penalties against Liverpool this past game week. Jose Sa is one of the worst goalkeepers when it comes to conceding penalties. It is a nice game for Kluivert, so I think he is like a fun guy, but it is Salah. He is.
It is.
He's that guy.
Salah is the standout player of the season, so like you can't go against it.
Yeah, but yeah,
Sadly,
I might have talked myself into buying Kluivert myself. So, because I remember he scored a hat trick from penalties against Wolves, because Wolves are just terrible at conceding penalties. So,
just terribly defensively. I mean, they conceded 4 goals to a Dyche Everton, so
yeah, that's true. That's true.
Probably would have ended 8-0 if it was boys. So yeah.
And on that note, we are done with the podcast, except for the final thing, which is Kevin's last word. So take it away.
I said it once and it worked in the past. Fuck Liverpool.